Hello, my name is Allie Stopka, and we are here today with Ted Pasha, and he's going to tell us a little bit about his incredible Iowa Hawkeye collection, starting off with Hayden Fry's car. So tell us, Ted, how did you end up with this amazing car?
Well, I always tell the story. I've been fortunate to be a friend of Hayden's for years and years and years, and for years he'd always say, Ted, when are you going to buy that little putt-putt? Mm-hmm. And I never knew what it was, but I always engage him and say, you know, well, let me show it to me sometime. So when he finally retired in '98, he called again, and his only description was that it had a Cadillac radio. So I'm thinking, what is that? Well, what he meant was a real popular, you know, fine radio. It wasn't a Cadillac radio. So I went out and finally saw it, and he brought it out, and we shook hands, and he handed me the keys, and every year he asked me if I still got the little putt-putt.
Yeah.
And I was relating a story earlier that the air cleaner is chrome, so I took it out to FRYfest one year, asked him to sign it, mm-hmm. and he's signing it, and he says, well, where's the rest of the car? And I said, I still got it.
Perfect. Tell us a little bit more about the car.
Well, it was built in 1981. My understanding is Hayden bought it after the Rose Bowl and in Florida, and it's called a replica car. So it's a 1929 Mercedes SSK, but it's a replica car, and now it's an antique in itself, being built in '81. But supposedly he and Shirley drove it back from Florida after that.
Wow.
And it's got less than probably 5,000 miles on it.
Right.
Yeah.
That's incredible.
People can say I have his autograph or I have a football from Hayden Fry, but they don't have his car. Mm-hmm. And then a few years ago, I was fortunate. I went down and I thought maybe I ought to put the Hayden Fry license plate on it.
Right.
And it wasn't used, so I've had it ever since.
Perfect, yeah. Now I see there's a little tiger hawk on the actual wheel. Is there any other Iowa Hawkeye
Well, that's
features?
about it. I just did the you know, to make it more Hayden Fry. One time I had a tiger hawk on the hood ornament, mm-hmm. and I decided, well, I better put it back to Mercedes because people understand that, but worked out pretty well. And every year when he's been able to come to FRYfest, he'd call me in and say, can you bring the car out, you know? So we take it out to Coralville for people to see.
Ted's office. So Ted, do you want to tell us a little bit about your collection of buttons behind us?
Yeah, this is probably my prized thing to do. It goes from 1924 to current, and I've got all the bowl buttons in chronological order. A few years ago I had the homecoming committee come out because I was working to get Kirk Ferentz on the homecoming button. There have been 5 or 6 coaches over the years that had been on the button, and he had never been on it. So it took about 7 years to convince him. I brought him out here to show him a collection and what collectors do with their buttons. And I gave him a hard time about making rectangular ones because it makes it more difficult to display them. But anyway, they finally said, yes, it was a great idea. So the only other hurdle was talking Kirk into it. And once he found out that it helped the homecoming committee do their weekend, he was all in. So it worked out great. But that was his 25th year at Iowa. Combined assistant and head coach in 2014. So that came out great. They had great sales. It was really something I felt really good about, that the fact that they finally recognized him.
Are there any buttons that you have that are different than what people normally have, or that, will you tell us about the fake Northwestern button?
For example, 1983, this is the original homecoming button from October of '83. Playing Wildcats in Northwestern, and this one is somebody in Coralville made a bunch of these and was selling them, and the university found out and it stopped him, and so I got a couple before they were destroyed, but that's pretty rare. The 58 is pretty well known that it came out more blue in the badge than the university wanted, so they got it back to the color it should have been, but there were a few of those that I came across. October 1952, they had a little one, and then they made a larger one. Very few of them, but they made a few larger ones. 59 is the same thing. So just unique stuff that I think most people just collect the normal buttons from 24 to present, but I try to get something unique and different.
So tell us about your Nile Kinnick flight card.
Yeah, several years ago, a friend of mine came up with this frame and wanted to know if I wanted it for my collection, and that is I think, pretty well documented that that is the final flight card that Nile signed before he did his last training mission that he never came back from. And the card next to the flight card is the Nile Kinnick baseball card where they spelled his name wrong, Niles instead of Nile.
Inside your incredible Iowa Hawkeyes barn. Will you tell us a little bit about the things that are just hanging around here?
Yeah, the best story is a tradition of the I Club, local club, Johnson County I Club, is we take pictures in front of each one of these boards starting back when Hayden first came here. Some of them are below with dates on them and some of them aren't, and then the other ones, more recent, have dates on them, but we take a picture of each individual player at fall practice with their uniform on, and we make a button for them. And we give them so the parents can wear them when they go to the games, so people can recognize who they are. So that is a fun thing. So I've been able to acquire most of the boards, all but one, I think, after 30 years. And then the usual banners from bowl games and flags and anything black and gold.
So football is definitely not the only Iowa Hawkeye sport that you enjoy.
Yeah,
tell us a little bit about your other sports.
Thank you for saying that, because I love women's sports. I love women's basketball. Everybody knows who number 10 is. The neat story on that jersey is I was so excited to get Megan's signature that I didn't notice till I got home. She signed it on the back side. Yeah. So I went back another time to get it on the front side so I could hang it the proper way on the display. But women's sports, yeah, I mean, the basketball team, field hockey, I mean, it's just unbelievable. Not to mention all sports like wrestling and any team that's Hawkeye.
All right, we're standing here in front of the wrestler Herky. Ted, will you tell us a little bit about the story behind this Herky?
Yes, one I had to have as a Hawkeye collector both. Yes. I got the first one, whenever that was, several years ago, and then I got this one. The other one I did as a football Herky. This one I did as wrestling, because one of my favorite sports and one of my favorite teams over at Iowa, so it's kind of cool.
We're standing inside of what's known as Hall of Fame East. Ted, will you tell us a little bit about your second Herky statue?
Yeah, this was the first, but it's one of two. This is the Hawkeye Herky. They actually put it in the Hall of Fame because of the intricacy of the thing, but a high school art teacher from my son's high school made that for me, and I've always liked it. I got a oversized plastic overhaul and put the wrench in his hand, and he's the Corvette repair Herky.
Today we are in the University of Iowa Athletics Hall of Fame with Richard Yan. Now Richard, tell us a little bit about your collections you brought for us today.
Okay, first of all I want to thank the University of Iowa and also the Hayden FRYfest committee for having me here today. What I brought today is a complete set of the homecoming badges that started back in 1924. This will be the first one that was issued.
Will you tell us a little bit about your homecoming button collection? How did you get started collecting these? What was the first badge you ever collected? And why do you collect these?
Okay, I got out of the service in Vietnam. I went to the games, every homecoming game I've been to. I started to collect 2 badges each at that time and period. And at that time, I had all these badges from 67 on. I said, why don't I back up and try to complete the thing by going backwards, which I did. It took me at least 3 years to complete my set. And the hardest one to get was the 1943 paper badge, which is hard to get because of that day it rained, so a lot of them were destroyed.
Do you have a favorite design or a favorite homecoming theme from any of these years?
Well, you know, the one in 1972, that badge there was dedicated to the Vietnam War. So that's one good badge that I kind of follow through. But the rest of them, yes. I mean, I enjoyed the 1924. I mean, even the 25, 26, and 27. I tell you, they're just tremendous badges, and they're getting harder and harder to find. Down here is more homecoming badges, which they dedicate, like the 100th homecoming event anniversary. There's the original pin that they give at the stadium. Then this here is what you got to buy separately. There's one of Hayden Fry, same thing. Then I got 2 of them in here of a 68 homecoming and also 89. Here's one down here. It's got the little clicker. Everybody keeps asking me, where you get the clickers? Well, I got 3 of them so far in my collection sitting in my place at home. This here is the original badge that you bought at the stadium, and this is the one it comes along with it. A lot of people didn't ask for them, but they were there. For some reason, the people selling the big pins didn't say, hey, the little ones come with it. But they did this year. I mean, this year, when I bought this one, they did say, hey, there's a little one, and of course I got it also. This down here is a complete set of the bowl games that Iowa played in. Started back, the first Rose Bowl was back in 1957. Then their second one was 1959. As you notice, we won them first 2 bowl games.
What has been your favorite bowl game memory you've experienced so far?
Oh man, I tell you what. The last one, I was there. I liked the last one. I liked that one. That was a very good game. There's one bowl game in here that nobody talks about or even mentions, and that's going to be this one right here. It's a tie between BYU, 1991. We tied that game. 13-13 was the score. You hear hardly anybody mention about that bowl game.
Will you tell us a little bit about your miniature helmet collection?
The helmets here are various types of different years, which the Hawkeyes wore during the games. This type helmet was wore back in 1930 to 1940. This is the type of helmet that they wore.
I know quite a few people collect homecoming buttons, but this is really unique.
I just found them on the internet. Most of them are from eBay. I got some of them from here in Des Moines and other places around Iowa. The autographs, I got one here of Hayden Fry. I met him 3 times, plus at the Hayden FRYfest, I met him. I got an autograph of Chuck Long, Kurt Ferentz, Dallas Clark, Bob Sanders, and this one here is Greenway. And this helmet here was worn during the special game, during the Ohio State game.
The blackout game?
Blackout game, which we whomped them.
Now, I know you have a complete collection of FRYfest buttons and schedule cards. Will you tell me a little bit about how you started collecting these?
Just came upon me having them, the pocket cards. The pocket cards are something that somebody gets and just throws away. I just happen to keep all my pocket cards. As you can see, they're with the medal or the pins that year. And I got a complete set so far of 10 years, which this coming month will be the 11th.
We are here here today at the University of Iowa Athletics Hall of Fame with Herb Staub. And Herb, you've been a collector of Iowa memorabilia for quite a long time. Tell me a little bit about how you got started collecting.
Well, I did my first pamphlet or book in 1980, and it was just one of those things that there was none that existed that showed a picture of an Iowa homecoming badge that was officially issued each year, and then some kind of a value. So it was called Price Guide to Iowa Homecoming Badges, and it was just a little ditty that sold for like $3. And that started, that was first of 4 books that I did over a 25-year period. And then the last book I did also touched on some of the problems with this hobby, and one is people that are making counterfeits or things that are not official, and trying to pass those off. And so I did touch on that a little bit. In 1943, they made a paper badge, and that one has been counterfeited. So yeah, there's some caution in collecting anything. So it helps to have an expert take a look, which I've helped many people do that. So I want to do one more in 2020, and then it'll be the 40th anniversary. And I want to, in that one, I want to spend more time with some of the older collectibles, and everyone has the homecoming badges and the bowl badges and prices and so on. So that'll still be retained in a smaller section, and then I'll spend a little more time with some of the more unusual things. In 1914, Coach Hawtrey was the coach, and this is a picture of him, and then this is some of the action photos in 1914 of different games. Iowa-Minnesota game. There's a few hundred people that are there. There's no video, there's no other record. So you can look and see the stadium here, that's it. And then from 1914, you go to 1921. This was the undefeated season in Iowa. And in 1921, the captain was Aubrey Devine, and he was kind of like Nile Kinnick was in the 39 Ironman. This is some action shots during the year of some of the games in 1921. Now this is a particularly horrible day. Iowa Northwestern, where Iowa won 20-0, but they're in the pouring rain, and all there is umbrellas in the bleachers. And then here's another shot of that, pretty much the same area, showing everyone with the blankets. This was Iowa, Indiana. I don't have the date of the year on this, but you can tell that the trees all the leaves are gone, it's cold. Another nicer day. But I mean, look at what they're dressed in, and everybody has hats, and the ladies are all dressed up.
It's a little bit different.
Everyone wore a tie and a suit coat. So
just a little bit different.
A little bit different, yeah. But I really enjoy this because it's a snapshot back into history. And in 1921, who do you think is there? You know, it's just somebody's grandparents. You know, so it's kind of neat to see that. This is the Kennedy assassination game, and this is a game that never happened. And this was between Notre Dame and Iowa on November 23rd. And this is the newspaper from November 22nd. So on Thursday the 21st is when that occurred. You can ask anybody, 50, 60 years old, where they were at, what they were doing, and they can tell you. And the program and the tickets, of course, went out early season. So when you got your tickets in the mail, you would get like a string of group of tickets, and you would take the ticket then out that you would go take it to the game. So this came out of a group, but yet it was never used because this section they would tear off part of the ticket, as they do in most cases. So this is a ticket from the game that never happened, and the tickets were $5. So you could get a refund if you sent your ticket back in, because some people had 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 tickets at $5 a piece was a lot of money in 1963. This is a maintenance worker's pass, and the person who had this, this came differently than with this other stuff, But he wrote on the back that President John F. Kennedy was assassinated, and then wrote it on the front also. So I mean, that's kind of sort of detrimental, but on the other hand, it really authenticates this too.
Absolutely.
And then the programs were printed, delivered to the stadium, and then they were sent back. But there were some of the programs that got in the hands of the team members and the staff and the people that worked there before they packed them up and sent them back. Mm-hmm. So these are very scarce, and the tickets are somewhat scarce too.